4 months since I made my last video. I'm sorry guys, I've been busy with stuff in real life. I'm back now though, and better than ever. And to my surprise, I came back to see that my recent video has 700 views. It's very clear that I have a small little audience going on here, expecting more videos like these from now on. Now, truth be told, I only really made that video so that I could teach my friends a few cool facts about a series that I like, so seeing that it managed to reach a wider audience is actually pretty cool. It's also a tiny bit scary because I almost feel like I have to deliver on something now. That being said, however, guys, I have to be honest. I fucked up. Yup. I done goofed. I've gone and spread misinformation on the internet, and now I must make an apology video addressing it. Okay, but in all seriousness, look at this comment. Basically, this person went out of their way to correct me on a few things I said in that video, which is 100% fine. I asked at the end of the video for people to do this since I was unsure on a lot of things in the video. Reason being that a lot of the Maru Monogatari stuff isn't really translated. And yeah, I'll be calling it Maru Monogatari or MM for now on, cause that is a mistake I made. I'm not gonna read or go over all of it here right now because it's a pretty long comment and it would take up at least 5 minutes of the video, but the main gist is that there are a few misconceptions within the video that I state. I think a lot of it is just me piecing together my own headcanon though, like the crushes Arle has on people, but other things like the series being dark, when in actuality it's just a specific iteration of the series that was represented that way, is something I should have elaborated on more. Now, I mentioned before now having to appease to these new viewers would be somewhat troubling. Yeah, the truth is, for a while I didn't exactly take into account how big of a task actually having to talk about an entire franchise would be. But I didn't just want to talk about the lore of the series in specific, I simply just want to talk about the series in general. That brings us to today's topic, Puyo Puyo da. Now, Puyo Puyo da isn't the most obscure Puyo thing out there, but it definitely isn't the most well-known one. For one, it's a freaking DDR-styled Puyo game, and it was only ever released in Japan in arcades and on the Dreamcast. Meaning that this is yet another piece of Puyo content that most Western fans probably have never come across. Also, it wasn't that fairly well received from what I can tell. More on that later though. Now, my first introduction to this game was through seeing art of it on the internet. If you go onto Google and look specifically for older art of the Puyo series, then these pictures from 1999 will definitely cross your way at some point. And I mean, just look at these pictures. They look freaking awesome. Each character has a unique and cool looking redesign. Arle looks great and oozes of that same charm classic Arle tends to have. Shezo, on the other hand, has a much more silly demeanor in this game than he usually does, but it fits him well. Suka Tadara has a ballerina outfit, and as you can see is styling with the same grace he's always had. Skeleton admittedly is the weakest of the bunch, but his cap and shoes look nice nonetheless. And I never in a million years would have thought that they'd give Minotauro so much drip, holy crap. Speaking of him though, Rulu looks fucking amazing. It's completely different from what her usual style looks like, but it fits her extremely well. And guys, I don't think you're ready for this, but they gave Satan nipples. If the internet couldn't handle when Mario had nipples, I don't know how they'll ever recover from this. I wish they had done more characters, but the cast is fine, though it's strange that Carbuncle is nowhere to be found in this game. At the end of the day though, I still think this is a strong cast of characters. For its time, these are definitely some of the best picks they could have come up with as Puyo rep. Rulu and Shezo work well enough as rival representation in this game, And if you're gonna have Rulu, of course you have to have Minotauros. Skeleton appears very early on within various routes in the early Puyo games, and is even the first opponent in the beginner course of the first Puyo game, making him akin to something like a Goomba. And Satan of course is the main villain, so you have to have him. And of course Arle is the protagonist, so she's here too. This was probably the thought process when deciding who they would feature in this game. Many video game archive blogs have gone out of their way to preserve these images, so massive shoutouts to them. These are probably the best thing to come out of this game. What do I mean by that? We'll elaborate later. But wait, it seems I've forgotten someone. Who the heck is that? That's supposed to be Witch, right? She has the same blonde hair and blue eyes after all, so who else could it be? Well actually, this is a character known as Alina Stevens, from Broadway Legends Alina. Hold on now, what the heck am I talking about? You see, Compile, the developers of this game, also developed another music game called Broadway Legend Alina prior to Puyo Puyo Da, and thus they decided to base this game's gameplay off of Broadway Legend Alina. Even though the title of the game does say featuring Alina's system, I still think it's cool how they go about presenting her presence in this game. A lot of games with cool crossovers like this to their roster just have them there. This game, however, actually starts out with the Broadway Legends title screen as well as the year it came out, and it shows her characters slide in and out of frame while clips from that game are being shown. And then it cuts to the year 1999 and it shows a 3D model of her similarly being slid across the screen while we're shown Puyo Puyo Da gameplay instead, showing how she's made her way into this game. And I think that's a seriously awesome way to show off her crossing over into the Puyo series. Her design is even a part of the game's logo. The cherry on top of this intro scene though has to be the amazing Puyo Puyo remix they play over this. This is seriously such a great way to introduce the game. Everything so far has been great. The game's unique style, its awesome artwork, and it even has great presentation. On the surface, this game seems like a really great game. So, what happened? Like I've been alluding to this whole time, this game's presentation really is the best thing it has going for it. The actual gameplay it's not good. I remember when I first heard of this game, I immediately looked it up to see what it was about, and the first review that I found was from GameSpot, who gave this game a 2.3 with the quote, "You can pick up Puyo Puyo Da and be completely fed up with it within an hour." This is probably the game's most well-known review. It's even listed on the game's wiki page under its reception. There are some reviews that share a sentiment of the gameplay not being bad, but not being anything special, making it not worth anything really. Either way, the main sentiment seems to be this game isn't very good. So, how about we finally get into this game? So the game starts off with the choice of Dance Challenge mode or Dance Battle mode. The Dreamcast version of this game has a slightly different start screen. It's basically the same thing except the arcade version translates the text for some reason. The Dreamcast version also comes with an options menu, so that's neat. Once you choose your mode, you get to pick your character. You get time though, which makes sense on the arcade version, but not the Dreamcast version. The Dreamcast version has some slight changes to it, so I don't know why they didn't bother to remove the timer from the Dreamcast version. I guess it doesn't really matter though. Anyways, I chose Arle. I'm not particularly bad at rhythm games, but I'm not horrible at them either, so I should be fine. So, let's see what this game is about. Well, yeah, this is essentially all the game is. Alright, so there's a lot to talk about. This game's gameplay seems to be purely based on fast button presses rather than following the rhythm of the song. The game has a similar gameplay style to Parappa the Rapper or Friday Night Funkin', but unlike those games that have songs styled around repeating the sounds you heard right before, this game doesn't bother to style its music like those games and just uses regular songs, which I guess could work. I mean, Dance Dance Revolution does this too, but Dance Dance Revolution actually maps out its keys to fit the rhythm of the song. And when you compete against someone in DDR, you're both doing the same exact map at the same time instead of taking turns hearing the rhythm of the song and then repeating it. I honestly think that this completely kills Puyo Puyo Da's gameplay. This game wants to be both a regular rhythm game where the keys are mapped around the song, while also being a dance fighting game where typically the music is styled to fit the fighting aspect of the game, and as a result, it fails at both. If they really wanted, they could have still done the turn-based rhythm, but just not have the maps be exactly the same. Actually design the button presses around the song and have both players take turns following the song. This would actually work extremely well with the game's other mechanics. Just like some other rhythm games, this game has an HP bar that decreases based on how many times you mess up. It also has the junk mechanic seen in regular Puyo games. As opposed to the HP bar, the better you do, the more junk is piled onto the other player. That's a nice touch at least. But overall, this gameplay is just not designed well at all. Well, this might be because the developers might have had a different goal in mind. Remember how I said this game was based off of Broadway legend Alina's gameplay? Well, I decided to watch some of Broadway Legend's gameplay, and it turned out that Puyo Puyo Da tried to copy Broadway Legend's gameplay in all the wrong ways. In Broadway, the button presses aren't tied to the background music at all. Instead, you're pretty much just expected to memorize your opponent's movements and copy them. This, however, actually makes 100% sense for this game. You see, the story of Broadway legend Alina is that Alina, the protagonist, wants to be a Broadway star, so she trains with 6 different dancers and is tasked with repeating their movements. So yeah, for that game specifically, it expects you to memorize the notes, take a second, and then repeat them back. Pretty much like a game of Simon. Puyo Puyo Da basically shot itself in the foot by trying to base its gameplay off of Broadway because it expects you to play it like any other rhythm game. As a result, the game is unfortunately bad and not really that fun, even if you can master pressing the buttons fast enough. But that's not all though. This game also has a bunch of unreasonable jank. The start screen has no music for some reason. This makes sense for the arcade version, but not the home console version. The versus screens are completely silent. This makes no sense for either versions. You can't use a dance pad with the game. While it doesn't personally bother me, the actual control scheme for this game for some reason is really awkward and the sound cues sound bad. But the worst offender of all of these is that you can't pause the game. somewhat reasonable in the arcade version. The home console version, you can't pause it? Seriously? That means that if you're ever losing, then you're just forced to sit there and listen to the whole song until it's finally over. It really does seem like this game wasn't fully thought out. Well, it sucks that this game completely blows in the gameplay department. I mean, what good is a game if the gameplay isn't good? Well, I think there's another testament that can be applied to this genre of game. What good is a music game if the music isn't good? Well, let's see. Does Puyo Puyo Da have good music? Well, that's completely subjective, but I do like it at least. I've already mentioned the intro's music being a remix of the Puyo theme, but it's not the only remix in this game's soundtrack. Since there are 8 characters in this game, each one gets a song, making for 8 songs in total. Out of the 8 songs, 2 are remixes, the first being Toy of Puyo Puyo, which is Shizo's theme. The next one being Memories of Puyo Puyo, which is Rilu's theme. Both of these are great in their own right. As for the other songs, it seems that they may also be remixes as well, but not of music found in other Puyo games. Well, the truth is that even though some of these songs aren't remixes, they're still tied to the Puyo series. Shakunetsu no Fire Dance, which is Arle's theme in this game, was originally used for a Puyo Puyo 2 ad. Here, take a listen. 灼熱のファイヤーダンス制服の野望に燃えて寒い冬には熱い炎のバトルスーパーぷよぷよ2コンパイ灼熱のファイヤーダンス星空まで全て手に入れた Suka Tadara's theme, I Miss You, was also repurposed from a Puyo Puyo Sun ad.
1、2、ぷよ、3、1、2、ぷよ、3、1、2、ぷよ、3。Yeah. Strange commercials aside, it's really cool to see that most of the songs in this game are rooted in Puyo Puyo in one way or another. I can't tell if any of the other songs are from any other obscure Puyo media or anything, but I'd say there's a high chance they are. I just wasn't able to find them. But yeah, overall, I think Puyo Puyo Da had a pretty solid soundtrack. Even though these songs aren't the greatest thing I've ever listened to, I think the song choices were great considering that they're all rooted in Puyo Puyo history in one way or another. It makes it all the more sad that the actual game isn't that good or fun. It's like they hit the mark with everything except the gameplay. Puyo Puyo Da is essentially a Puyo fan service game, a great reimagining of already existing characters with animations and design that ooze personality, remixes of some of the best and well-known Puyo songs, as well as repurposing of obscure songs used in Puyo media that otherwise would have probably never been heard of. These are all freaking awesome. If only the gameplay had more thought put into it though. It really does make me wish that this game got a sequel or a reimagining or something. A modern day Puyo rhythm game would be incredible. Think of how many new characters would get redesigns and how many songs they could use. There are actual vocal Puyo tracks now, so it'd be great to see them used in a Puyo rhythm game. The concept of a Puyo rhythm game may seem like a one and done idea for most people, but it actually might be more possible than you think since Puyo's parent company is Sega, and Sega has had a hand in helping develop many rhythm game series already.
Although, I don't think Sega has Puyo Rhythm Game on their top priority though, so it's probably never going to happen. I can still dream though. The last thing I want to talk about in regards to this game actually doesn't have to do with the game itself, but instead about the game's plush set. I've always wanted to make a video talking about Puyo Puyo merchandise because it's a part of the series that I've always found interesting. You see, modern day Puyo merchandise is fairly scarce. I mean, it exists, but not to the extent that classic Puyo merchandise did. Back then, when a Puyo game came out, a plush set was made to accompany it, and there are many other kinds of sets that got released too. Like, look at this Christmas Puyo set. It looks absolutely amazing. But of course that means that this game also received a plush set. If you've looked up images for this game before, you've probably come across pictures of this Arle Puyo Puyo Da plush. I have to say, this plush looks absolutely incredible. It's probably my favorite Arle plush ever. It perfectly recreates her design from the game. Her face looks incredibly accurate, though her face is painted on, which means it can wear over time, so you have to take care of the plush. This is such a unique design for an Arle plush, and it makes it stand out compared to all the other classic Arle plushes. On her tag you can see artwork of the entire cast of the game. So did they get plushes too? Well, as far as I'm aware, only Seiden and Sukatadara received the plush treatment. Look at these guys. They're amazing. They have so much detail on them and perfectly capture their in-game design. I have no idea if more plushes exist in this set, like a Rulu or a skeleton, but these plushes do seem to be much higher quality than the usual Puyo plushes. So I guess it would make sense if they chose the route of quality over quantity. Here's a surprise though. Carbuncle actually made his way into this plush set. What the actual heck, man? Considering the fact that Alina is plastered all over this game, you'd think that she'd get a plush, but no, Carbuncle was the one who somehow managed to get a plush. I know Carbuncle is as much as a mascot to the Puyo series as Arle is, but it's still weird he's here. It makes me wonder why he wasn't in the game to begin with. The plush looks really nice though, I like it a lot. I wish I could own some of these plushes, but unfortunately they're really rare. They rarely ever go up for sale, and it's a shame because these are definitely some of the most top-notch Puyo plushes I've ever seen. When are we ever going to get a Seiden plush that looks as good as this one ever again? I've personally never seen these go for sale, so I don't know how much they cost, but if I ever see them go for sale, as a slim of a chance as that may be, I'll definitely be buying one. So yeah, that's Puyo Puyo Da. There's so much potential with this game, to its concept, its music, it even had merchandise. In the end, while it might not be a good game, I still think there's something special here. The wackiness of the characters, the unique dances. Really, all of the charm that the Puyo series is known for is all present in this game, and I think that alone makes it a game worth discussing. It might not be Puyo story lore, but I hope you enjoyed my video anyways. Thank you so much for watching. Plugs in the description. See ya!